And if everybody in the audience could silence their cell phones so it doesn't chime in, that would be great. Appreciate it. So if we could, we're going to have an invocation and a pledge of allegiance. Bill's going to lead us with the invocation first. Please stand.
Oh Lord, thank you for such a beautiful day in the rain today. And thank you for the help that you're giving us to resolve our problems in a public and way that is everybody can see what we're doing and talking about, so that they understand as a whole we want to replace, revise, and come back as an independent water treatment business. In Jesus Christ, our Savior's name, amen.
Amen.
Salute. Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Okay. Well, let's get started here with the consent calendar.
Present.
President Mark Zoller.
Here.
Vice President Walter Buck.
Here.
Director Bill Hella.
Present.
And Division 3, Director Steve is vacant at this time.
Correct. Thank you. Okay. We have a consent calendar. Is there any questions on the consent calendar from last month? No discussion? No questions? Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Motion to approve the cover.
I'd like to, is the staff report on water treatment plant in the consent agenda?
That's staff reports.
Huh?
It's under staff reports.
Okay, so we'll talk about it. All right.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Okay, thank you. Public participation. Does anyone like to speak on anything that is not on tonight's agenda? Ma'am, would you like to come first? Sure. She had her hand up. Okay.
Thank you. My name is Marty Dunlap, and I am here today to talk about the Campfire WUI Timber and Biomass Removal Project that has been pursued by the Butte County Fire Safe Council, and also using PID land as the pilot. And so I wanted to make some comments regarding that undertaking. And particularly what I wanted to say is, first of all, I'm really glad that the Butte County Fire Safe Council group is taking this on, because I think anything that is taken locally is going to give us much more control over what does happen in our region. So I'm really glad that that is something that's happening. So what I wanted to say tonight is the survey that was conducted by the Sierra Timber Services indicates that there's been an 81% mortality of the trees in the area that they've surveyed. And I can see that from looking at your I think it was the February 20th meeting, that you had put forward a call for arborists to participate in that undertaking. And I want to let you know that I'm really glad that arborists are being considered as the most appropriate professional to participate. Arborists have been trained in the scientific principles in the evaluation of the health of trees, whereas foresters, although they are trained, they do a broad-based review of a stand of trees for timber management, and their review is not as conservative as I think is necessary in this regard. I think being conservative is very important in the removal of hazardous trees at this point because of the huge loss that we have had in our vegetation in this region. Trees are valuable for lowering temperatures in the summer, water retention in the soil, minimization of water erosion of soil into our water bodies, the exchange of carbon for oxygen, minimizing the speed of ground fuels, and the aesthetics of our region. it seems to me that at this point, and I'm here today to really make a plea to you as the board and also the staff of PID, that we proceed in this in a very cautious way. I think that the principle called the precautionary principle is relevant in this situation due to the high loss of trees that we've had and the importance of maintaining some type of canopy. The precautionary principle states that if there is contradictory evidence, scientific evidence about a project, in this regard removing a tree, that the party who wants to remove it needs to come forward with the evidence to support that undertaking, which would be to remove that particular tree. I think it's important that we allow the arborist to look at the different trees on the PID lands that are going to be reviewed, and that if the arborist, in his or her estimation, determines that there is a greater than 50% chance that that tree is going to live, that we then are more cautious in removing that tree. And what I am encouraging PID to embrace, and I've also been talking to the Fire Safe Council about the same thing, is to use the protocols that have been instituted by PG&E as well as by the Forest Service in, if there is an uncertainty about the status of a tree, that you let conifers live at least 1 year and you let oaks live at least 3 years to make the determination whether or not they're going to be hazardous. So in this regard, it seems to me that we can afford to do this, and PID can afford to do this, to be cautious in the approach to the trees that are removed. I know that it's stated within the project that they want to take the largest and most valuable timber, but it seems to me the loss has been so great in this region, the loss of homes, of businesses, of lives, of livelihood, of vegetation, of our sense of security and our sense of community, that it behooves us to be cautious in this endeavor and to not eliminate trees that can live. And so I'm encouraging you to give this type of direction to the arborists that you are hiring to do the review of your land as you go forward in participation of this project. You, as the board and also the staff of PID, are stewards of this land, and it behooves you to take your authority to be cautious in maintaining what's important in our region, to have what is important for the livelihood of all of us, and that is not only the aesthetics, but the temperatures, the erosion, the trees. And so don't make our loss even greater. So please, if you would, use your counsel and your authority to mitigate further damage. So I do have both the documents that I was referring to, the UC Ag Extension documents, the UC Forest Service, the USF Forest Service documents about the protocols for how to review trees after fires, as well as the summary of my comments tonight. And I will leave this maybe with Georgiana to distribute to the board and staff who may not be here tonight. Thank you.
I'd like to answer your... Marty, this parcel of land was studied by the U.S. Forest Service, and we have plans here for our timber all through the district, from Forest Service plans as old as 5 years ago that we have. They're available to the public. You can review those. They're on CDs.
On your website?
No, in the files here.
Okay.
Okay, we never put them on the website. We've done brush control underneath those trees with masculators in the last few years, and that helped to control the fire. Most of the stand that you see from the roads is 100-year-old trees. They were actually dying before the fire, and I talked to a forester with California Fire, and he said, yeah, it's time to harvest them. You got to get those dead trees out of there. Well, dead trees love fire, I guess, is part of why the fire is so bad there. This was all done before the fire. And then the program that was presented to us was to clean it up. And basically, we may even replant it if we have to. But that has to go. And we've got other parts of our forest that belong to PID that need to be selectively logged and cleaned up. They're fire hazards. And part of them we have a good stands of ponderosa, and some of them we don't have. It's all mixed, and it still needs more brush control work done on it. One of the reasons we lost our bee reservoir in this fire is that we had been lax in our brush control on our own property, and the fire was in the brush that burned up the top of the reservoir. So we've suffered two different ways. We've been careful, we've done our homework, and as far as what you're telling me, I don't think it's germane. We've done our job, and we were very happy to see the Fire Safe Council come with a proposal, and that they're going to head it up and hire all the necessary people and do the work. And we said, okay, we'll join in. We don't have much money right now to help, but we certainly will give you access to the trees. So I don't think a lot of your fears are groundless in this, because when it happened, the fire, the worst of it I've seen was in those 100-year-old trees that have grown up since 1915 when the reservoir was built, and they denuded the hills all around it, logged it clear when they built the reservoir. You can find pictures of that.
Well, I appreciate your comments, Bill, and I agree that trees that have come to the end of their life can only be determined by people who are knowledgeable and trained, so that is really an important factor. And I wouldn't say so much my fears as much as my encouragement that if there can be a decision made about particular trees, since you are hiring a forest arborist, that you allow that person to, if there is a question, that
Well, the people that are doing the hiring is not PID. They're the Fire Safe Council.
Okay.
They're going to hire the arborist. They're going to supervise it and everything else. We're going along to help because we don't have any money to hire an arborist for that right now.
Okay, so maybe
Yeah.
I misunderstood what I read.
No, we're not.
We're going to use discretion when it comes to these trees, and
If we want to discuss it further, we can agenda.
Sure.
Next meeting.
yeah. But thank you very much for the comments, and we appreciate that. Yeah.
Thank you, and good evening, Board, Ward Habriel, and staff, and welcome, Ross. We're looking forward to a report. Thanks. Not that there was anything wrong with previous ones, but a professional giving a report on his behalf would be great. Let me just cover a couple of things to refresh you if you haven't heard. Greg Dobbs, our wonderful guy from the lake, has been vice chair of the Butte County Fire Safe Council. His term is up, and guess who was elected to take over for him? So I am the new chairman of vice I'm the vice chairman at the Butte County Fire Safe Council now. And thank you for your interest in the Fire Safe Council. And by the way, if you were not aware, it is actually the Fire Safe Councils within Butte County that have done most of U.S. Forest Service's work in the past several years, and over 25 for the Butte County Fire Safe Council, because they have failed to do so, as was indicated in the Little Hoover Commission report 3 years ago. Last month, I passed a photo through you over to staff to be able to see a picture of a sign in a public place that said the water was too hazardous to drink, and why. Certified by DDW, just like we've been looking at here. We don't have any of those signs here. And frankly, the reason for that is because our water is not unsafe to drink, and yet you won't say that. I really appreciated the presentation that Kevin made. It was practical, it was to the point, but it wasn't very scientific at all. And there are people that are concerned scientifically about our water. Is it dangerous or not? And frankly, without the state requiring, DDW requiring you to put up those signs that the water is hazardous to drink, it's not. That's the choice. It either is it or it isn't. So the signs that we do have around town are kind of like this one, which is your flyer from back in February. It's in a few public places. Some of them actually still have the notice that was in the paper that says boil your water. That's not appropriate in a public place. It should say non-potable water. So we either need to figure out how we're going to get the correct information out there, or we need to back off, because some people are really, frankly, upset about that. I'm going to be representing Paradise and the Paradise Garden Club at the San Francisco Flower and Garden Show for the next 4 days. Fortunately, this year it's no longer in San Francisco. People got sick and tired of the Cow Palace. It's going to be at Cal Expo. Now, we have 9 clubs in the Buttes District. All of them have been invited to participate one way or another for their presentations in the information. The information that we have here in Paradise from the Garden Club is what we've been doing in the way of projects, and how we are representing ourselves to our community now is probably the most significant to the people that would be attending there. Simply because we are known for our garden tour and have for over 25 years to get people to come up here and look at beautiful properties. It ain't going to happen for several years to come. So what we have in the meantime is our beautification project revolving around the daffodils. And of course, you've seen them all over the place. We want to continue that. So we will be we'll be asking for donations to be able to continue that, because without the $9,000 or $10,000 that we make during our tour, we're going to need donations to be able to continue that. So that's something that we're looking forward to. And my last question is really about, since our garden here really looks pretty good as a demonstration garden, except for the fence on the corner, can we get that fixed? And I'm thinking maybe a couple of volunteers like Chuck and Ward might be willing to do that. We just need a little direction there. Thank you for your time.
Thanks a lot, Ward. Appreciate the comments.
All right.
I'm Jim Noble, and thank you for letting me come up here. My concern is the public's perception of the water being contaminated and trying to raise an agricultural crop. I probably can't do anything this year because infrastructure is absolutely destroyed. But in the future, what can I count on in the mind of people, how to raise apples that they deem safe? Because if they think the water is contaminated, what are they going to think about the fruit? And can we have some sort of discussion or information dispersal? Also, people want to raise a garden maybe. They might want to be concerned about the same things too.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Those are good comments. Appreciate that. Yeah. Anyone else like to have anything to comment on or anything on your mind? All right. Well, thank you very much. Okay. Now we'll move to facilities status report.
Sure. So the last month, what the district has done was create a recovery plan that is working inside the game plan of FEMA and Cal OES. And that's not an easy task. FEMA and Cal OES, or FEMA truly, who holds the largest pocketbook, has a Stafford Act that requires certain things to happen to be reimbursed for expenses. Those certain things have timelines. They have items that are reimbursable under certain categories and items that are reimbursable under other categories. And there's a procurement policy that needs to be, or a procurement process that needs to be followed to the T, or there's an opportunity for loss of funding 5 years later. We can't afford that. It's an extremely frustrating process that we're working inside of, but we have good partners. Cal OES has been great. We've met with FEMA, and FEMA has had representatives up here working with us, trying to work inside their game plan. We now finally have our engineer on board, and they're working and trying to work inside that game plan. And we're also working in the game plan of other regulatory agencies. Department of Drinking Water is one, EPA is the other, and environmental health. Word's correct. We are not the scientists. We don't have the science behind this. We're trying to rely on others for that help, and we're reaching out asking for that help. This problem and this vast amount of destruction, as we research further and further, it's wider and wider. We took over 50 samples and got results back yesterday, expecting certain results. The expectation of those results weren't what we expected. They're random. There's service lines that are steel lines that we're finding contamination in, when the plastic lines have no contamination in them. There's no rhyme or reason of the contamination at this point. So the umbrella that or this net that we're casting seems to get wider and wider, and the process and the project gets bigger and bigger. We've developed a plan that is large, big, huge, big numbers, with the expectation that number is going to be smaller and smaller as we develop more and more information. But the other thing, too, is it could get bigger and bigger as we develop more information. I kind of make it as the example or the analogy is that, let's say the fire comes through and all the destruction of the homes and all of the debris was all passed to the town of Paradise to go figure out how you're going to get this done, figure out how you're going to figure out the soil contamination and get rid of all the debris. That's kind of what we're facing right now. We have a system of 10,500, just like they had parcels 10,500 because each one of the parcels had a water service connection to us, that they have that ability. The Cal Recycle comes in, does it all for them. So we're looking for that help. We are going to push forward to look for the help because we're facing just as big a problem as the town of Paradise would be in if they were required to go clean up every lot and figure out how to get all the contamination out of every single one of those parcels. So this project that we're undertaking, as long as it's taken us to figure it out, there's still not all the answers. We still don't have all the answers. We're going to need patience. We're going to need help out there from multiple agencies and from our public. We need the help from the public to first of all have patience with us, understanding, and think of ideas. We're open. We don't think that we have the greatest and best idea. We just feel like the plan that we have is solid, which we're going to have a public meeting on the 26th that will be talking about kind of the overall basis of what we're trying to accomplish. So here's what we're trying to accomplish within our plan. We're trying to isolate. What we're trying to do is stagnate the system. So we all know that it takes 72 hours. Well, first of all, let me step one step back. The one thing that we have to realize is that the water's not contaminated. The water coming out of the treatment plant is good, clean water. It's the infrastructure that's contaminated. And so, but you can't look at the infrastructure and find the contamination or the damage. You have to test the infrastructure to see if the infrastructure is damaged. That's the big crutch. So what we have to do is stagnate the system. To stagnate the system, you can't have users on the system in that area that you're trying to stagnate. So we have to we're talking about putting people on a portable tank in their yard to bring in their potable water for them so that we can stagnate the system to test the system. That testing will take at least 72 hours to stagnate, and then how quickly we can get results back from that. The other thing, too, is that you have main lines and you have water that's flowing in and out. So you can't just, as soon as that line is clear, turn it back on and let water flow through it. You have to be able to stagnate enough so that you're not going to get the water moving in other areas. So our engineer is doing extensive testing right now, flow testing, to see how we can shut down the smallest part of the system to stagnate for the shortest amount of time to test that system and then clear that area and go to the next part. So we're hoping not to have to shut down a whole zone and then leave that zone off of the system and then move to the next zone. We're hoping to maybe find areas that we can kind of piece apart and come back, test it, and then put them back on water after we have done testing and clearing that area. So the plan is definitely not complete. We have a baseline of what we feel like is necessary. So after we find out that we isolate, we test, or we stagnate, we test, then we isolate the contamination. By isolating the contamination, you shut off basically the burnt out or the damaged infrastructure. That could be a service line or it could be a main line. If we shut off the main line, then those people that are on that main line probably will be on temporary tanks for a little while. That's just the way it is, because we're not going to slow down the whole testing to go back and finish that main line. So we're going to test, we're going to isolate, and then we're going to replace. That's our game plan. And that way, what we're doing, and this is the big thing, FEMA requires you to show damage. You can't just come through and replace everything, which we would love to do, and show that, hey, the whole system is contaminated. We have people that there's a thought of how are we going to clear this? How do I know that there's no contamination here, right? The best thing would be to do is replace everything. You got a clean system. Go through and do it. That's not how FEMA works, though. You got to show damage. So by testing every one of those service lines and main lines, we're showing that there's no damage or there's damage. Then we were able to go back and replace that damage with new infrastructure. We're hoping, we're positive by this process we can certify that the water is good, clean, and it's not contaminated, and get people back into water service as quickly as possible. The other thing is that we will be putting people on temporary water, so no one will be without water during this time. So there's an option. There's the availability of water for that. There is going to be questions about new homes, which we're working through, trailers, people coming back up with trailers, businesses, and we're working through each one of those processes through different areas of funding and availability. Some don't meet FEMA funding criteria, some do. We're going to work through the FEMA, and whatever doesn't work outside of that box, we're going to go look for private funding for those availability. So we're hoping no one's left out of this process or this project. So that's where we are currently with this. You guys have a draft of the plan. We can have a discussion about that at a future board meeting or a special board meeting. Right now, that's being vetted through the other agencies. There will be changes to that plan. So that is not the end-all be-all plan. I can tell you that right now. And it's not going to be the end-all be-all plan as we go through this process. It's going to be a fluid plan. It's going to be, we're going to find things in there that we can either speed things up or it might slow things down. Based on what we're finding is there's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of unknowns out there that we're trying to find out. And some of those you won't find out until you're through getting into the process. But the plan is made to be fluid. So that's where we're at currently. We're still out fixing leaks. People are still requesting water to be turned on, and we're working through that. We are working with Purdue. Purdue will be coming out in Monday to talk about the health concerns about the contaminants. They will be present at the meeting to answer questions from the public about health concerns of the contaminants. And we're still working through the extent of the contaminants of what we're going to be testing for. We know benzene is in there, but there's other VOCs that we've discovered in there too. And so what the extent of the testing is going to be is still being fleshed out, per se. And so that's where we're at right now with the facilities update. I can take any questions.
Do you have a sense of, you purge, you fill it, you test it? How many times is this going to happen before you finally say, you know what, we got to give up on this pipe and start digging trenches?
Under our plan, we find contamination. What we want to do is that test is going to be our final test. If that thing comes back and it's contaminated, we want to be able to replace that.
One time?
One time.
Okay.
And the issue that you're talking about, though, is that you have a service line. Well, you have a main line, and then you have service lines that come off of it. So we have to test the service line, but then we have to find out, and we're going to find a procedure to test the main line itself. Because if the main line is damaged, then we'll just basically cut that off. All service lines, all main lines will be replaced. So we're finding ways to be able to test the service line and then pull more water from the main line to be able to test that water. So so really what you're going to be doing is if you go down a street and there's 10 services on there, you're probably going to be pulling 20 samples. Because you're going to be pulling samples on all those services, and then you're going to be pulling samples, maybe 15. You'll be pulling samples to try to get that main line water.
Has anybody, FEMA or anybody say, okay, if you have to do a mile of trenching, are they going to chip in? Are they going to pay? Who's going to pay?
Our plan is for our plan to meet FEMA's requirements for every dollar we're trying to spend.
Okay.
Yeah. When it comes to infrastructure repair, we are working, that's why this is taking so long, is we're working to go forward to make sure our plan meets the requirements that they need for reimbursement. So, and there's multiple requirements, and you have to show, not only do you have to show that your plan is showing damage, but you have to show that your plan is the least cost-effective way to show damage. Yeah. And so you have to show the alternatives and then show that the alternatives are not cost-effective to what you're going forward with. So it's a multifaceted type of way. So that's the facility status update. We are working with other organizations out there. There's other agencies that are looking to try to get water, and we're working with them to figure out the best possible solution for them to get water service back up. Some have talked about drilling wells. Others are talking about portable tanks, which we've seen. We are working on we've secured land to put in a large filling station in town so that we'll be providing the water for the tanks. All we'll need is the trucks to deliver the water to the tanks. So we have secured that, and it's ready for construction when we're ready to start this.
So, like simple logistics, maybe when you're trying to stagnate an area and there's cleanup in the area going on, are you going to be able to lock the hydrants down so we don't have a random water truck that goes and flows and those things?
So when we're ready to lock a area down, the debris removal people have been told they are only allowed to pull water from hydrants with construction meters on them. So we'll pull all construction meters off within that region, and they'll just have to travel down and pull water and then come back to that area. So that's how we'll facilitate that. We're not going to lock them out of water because we want the debris removal to continue, but we will just isolate areas and then move those construction meters out.
Kevin, what do you think the lead time would be for the customers? In other words, how much notice would we give them before we isolated or stagnated an area?
We haven't got the exact dates down, but there'll be plenty of notice. What we're going to have, and we're still vetting it out, is a registration form for every standing structure to be able to sign up for the tank, register for it. We'll have a right of entry form for us to come on property to set the tank. And then there'll be a way of communicating on that form, so we'll communicate with them on that. I'm thinking lead time wise, I'm hoping at least a couple weeks.
Okay. Yeah.
And then when we're in their area, Mickey's working on an ability for them to be able to log in, to see where they're at, to be able to push out information to them. We're going to be in your neighborhood today, or we're going to be in your neighborhood in the next couple weeks. But hopefully, what the thought is that they'll have that tank and they'll see no disruption, right? Okay. So they'll have that tank already. For us cutting them off service, they'll see no disruption in their service.
And we'll be monitoring tank levels?
We'll be monitoring tank levels, and we'll figure out a route. It'll be a route system to be able to go top tanks off based on the other part of the registration is how many people in the home,
Projected usage.
Right, yeah. So we can monitor their usage. Not
Don't want any more depressurization, right?
We don't want that. And have some availability that says, if you're getting to a point where you feel like you're low and you're not going to have a truck coming by in the next couple of days, we could probably get emergency water out to them or something like that. That'll be part of our customer service. So our customer service will change from what we normally have done to now taking care of these tanks and basically it's our new water delivery, right? Trucks are now becoming our pipelines in a way for the temporary system. So,
I have several questions.
go for it.
People are buying their own tanks and setting up their own systems and even having water treatment things on their property. And it's going on all over town for large tanks, 1,500 gallons, down to, I think the smallest one would be 100 gallons or so. And they're picking up water in the long part that I find is trucked up from Chico, or they've actually gone to Chico. That's where I get my potable water. Why can't we continue with that with them if they will meet the basic needs? In other words, instead of us getting in the business of owning tanks, moving tanks, checking services on them, why don't we, if the meter's any good, or they're going to go plumb this thing, they go buy water, put it in there, and why can't they actually pick up the water from the water treatment plant and have a dispersal up there? I've seen the trucks coming from Chico to go to the grocery store in the Kmart shopping center, and they can be in business, and there's numerous businesses now that have their own water system with water trucked in. Why can't we cap on selling that water by setting up a system at the water treatment plant rather than running it through a pipe down to a lot somewhere in town. And we've just set it up for filling 5-gallon drums up there. And why can't we set it up where we can fill water trucks? And it's like right down the road here, there's a bunch of water trucks parked that I don't know where they're getting their water. Maybe it's from the meters or your access through a meter, I don't know. But the idea is very simple. Make it local. They can buy the water tanks locally from suppliers. They don't need 1,500 gallons. I certainly don't as a single person in a small trailer. And other people, depending on their family size and their needs, could buy their own tanks and finance them, maybe through their fire insurance. So why do we get in a tank business when they can get in it? And then the other thing is, why can't we work with our customers on training them to take water samples so that they can bring in samples? We'd give them a sheet to work with, maybe supervision or training, but they could take samples on their property and possibly others. I've already been told that people are doing this on their own, taking water treatment samples, and went down, and one of my sons is in the neighborhood, and they said they came back and there was no benzene in their sample. So they're already doing it. And I'm saying, why don't we work with our customers who own the district to get these services done, instead of trying to raise millions of dollars through FEMA and go through their zigzag. I remember in ag years ago, there was a deal where the government passed a rule to help all small businesses because they basically shut down ag for 1 year, and most small businesses were in danger of going broke, mine included. And when we applied for the money, we found out it was a corkscrew, and that very few people got any money. So my problem, it sounds like you have a corkscrew with FEMA right now. You can also use our activated charcoal, and there's people that sell those, and hook it up with the tanks where you can clean up the water you do have individually. People that can actually turn their own water on or off. It's a simple process. We don't have the personnel to check on this. In some cases, they have to dig the meters up, but they can open them up. So there's the samples, feeds. And then you're talking about buying some property and building a small station there for trucks?
No, we leased it for $1.
Okay, and what is it costing you to build and put the pipe into it?
The pipe's already there, so all we would have to do would be get a fill station constructed there.
Okay, and yet we have the water treatment plant that has clean water coming out of it.
Right.
And people, it's not that far from here.
Correct.
Could drive trucks up there, and we could price the water competitively to Chico.
And we've looked at it. The concern was that right now we don't have the construction of a fill station there, and the access in there is really tight. So from a truck standpoint, it would be really tight to get trucks in and out of there. So we felt like instead of the only difference between what we're doing with the property versus the one at the treatment plant is we'd have to construct a fill station either way. So we're just happy to construct it in town.
What kind of filtration system is it, Kevin?
Huh?
What kind of filtration system?
Fill station. Fill. So filling trucks.
Filling station.
It's a filling station, but what's the guarantee the water is clear?
It's good. We know it's good. We've tested the water. It comes out of the J box, which is it's just at the end of the 42. So we know that the water from the treatment plant, leaving the treatment plant to the J box, which would be where the B-res, where that water would go into the B-res.
Right.
We know that water's good. So we know that water's good. So we felt it was more prudent to put it in town and in a more easily accessible with good turning radius in town. So that's why we decided to do that there instead of at the treatment plant.
Okay, there's enough PID property there. We still need somebody else's property to make it work?
It's the most convenient because it's at the end of the 42, so we don't have to go anywhere within the distribution system and test more. We know that's positive. We know it's good water, and we know it's a good sized land, and it's really not costing us anything additional.
Folks that don't know, the 42 inches, the main line is 42 inches in diameter that comes out of the water treatment plant and supplies everything in the district. let's see, what else have I got here? And what we're after as a group and things, and what I'm doing is trying to flesh out all the details, because we don't, as a board, haven't known the details. We just became educated, just like the rest of the public hopefully will be, on this come next week. The thing is that we need to be open on all this stuff, all the details and different things, so that the public will understand and we treat them as adults. In other words, there's a danger and a hazard to it. We tell them about it, but we can't tell them not to drink the water. Like the old story, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't tell it to drink. And so this is what I'm trying to do with the questions tonight. There will be other questions later on to get as much detail as we can so that you know what's going on in the district and what Kevin and the rest of the crew are trying to put together. And then I have my own opinions, of course, of different things. But so that's the end of my questions.
Let me answer your questions on the other ones.
Yeah.
We can't afford as a district to be, but let me step back. The people that want to put tanks on their property, we're not going to stop them. Absolutely not, and we'll work with them absolutely through this process. We're more concerned about the people who can't put tanks on their property. So that's where we're going with FEMA to do that, because we can't afford to go and buy tanks for them and put it on their property. We're working with, we'll be working with everybody to try to get everybody water through this process. For the sampling in the home, that's a really, really difficult process to undertake. And again, we can't just give away samples to the public to go test their home. We're working with the health department on that, and we're working with Purdue EPA on that to get an idea. When it comes to charcoal filters to the house, we're allowing the customer to rely on their expert to give them the guarantee that charcoal filter is going to clean their water to that end result. So again, it's going to be on the homeowner to rely on that. We can't be in the process of guaranteeing that the indoor plumbing that they're putting that water into is certified and good. So that's where we're at with that. But we're trying to find results for that, trying to get help in for that. That is one of our biggest tasks that we've actually worked on this last month, is trying to find help for the individual homeowner. That is one of our biggest things.
Yeah, I think it's really important to standardize and be consistent here, and that's what we're looking at.
Yep.
And with all these different systems, Bill, in town, you don't know what the results will be from one system to another. But if we go with a standardized system that FEMA and Cal OES buys off on, then that's where we want to go. That's where I want to go anyway. So.
For you folks that don't know, his last job was running the sewage plant in Chico, so he understands how to get bad things out of water.
Thanks for the plug, Bill.
You're welcome.
There you go, Bill.
Okay.
Any other questions? Public?
Any comments from the audience?
Yes, thank you. I think there's an issue here that has bugged me for 3 months now. We have a district manager, and it says Kevin Phillips right there. We're recording this and filming this, and I'm sick and tired of reading in the ER, the Post, and hearing on KPay Radio that they interviewed an interim district manager. We have a district manager. This board felt him to be capable to do that. He accepted the position, and that's who he is. Somebody has got to get to the media and tell him, we are not still looking for a general manager, a district manager, or somebody to take over this company. He's here.
I got a great idea, Ward. Read the sign. District manager.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Ward. I had the same opinion.
I can read the sign.
And Ward, there's all sorts of other errors and some of the stuff that's been published. So,
Thanks for the comment.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Okay, I think we can maybe move on.
Yep, that was
All right.
the information. More to come.
Okay. Treasurer's report.
Is it staff and billing?
Oh, I'm sorry, staff reports. Yep.
You have the written report. I can answer any questions that you might have on the staff report. You pretty much heard what our staff is doing in the facilities update report. But I know Bill has some questions, and I'm going to try to answer them the best I can.
Okay. Usually in these staff reports on the water treatment plant and the field staff, I don't see that one. They say how many leaks we have and how many meters had to be replaced. And I'd like to know how many new meters we might have in inventory to replace. I know we sent a lot of them back when we started counting everything. So,
I can give you an update on that.
okay.
Yeah, the leaks are countless. That's basically what we're trying to do is find the leaks. The really difficult thing about finding leaks right now is with as much rain and as much runoff as there is, it's hard to tell if we're filling up a river or if the rain is filling it up. So trying to find where leaks are surfacing, it's really difficult. The other thing is there's a ton of debris still out there. So there's a lot of debris that's pushing down that leak in those waters, and we know that there's leaks out there that are not surfacing. So leaks that are finding kind of underground little areas and running out, and then probably finding a ravine or something that they're running down. So we do have a lot of leaks. We're out there constantly. Our biggest eyes and ears of the public, calling in leaks and finding them, and we're trying to tackle them as quickly as we can. Meters, we're pulling meters. So what we're doing is we're going out and removing meters. Meters, we feel, could have been one of the leading criterias to the contamination. Plastic meters that got heated up. They were ones that were on the surface, heated up, and produced the VOCs that were then backwashed into the system. So we're actually out there pulling them. If a person does want water service turned back onto them, we're pulling the meter out, we're putting in a steel blank, and we're putting that in, and then we're putting that water back into their service. So we're trying to take meters out of service instead of putting meters into service. We have not installed any new meters, just to let you know. So there's no meters that we've installed. When we do go back to install meters, it'll be a project. So that'll be something we have to go out and bid, and we can go out and bid to a meter company. That meter company then will be the one that supplies all of our meters going forward. We are out testing meters, so we're trying to prove that all of the meters, no matter if there's physical damage, but there's also internal damage, and there could be contaminated damage. So there could be three pieces of damage. The physical damage, if it's melted, it's pretty easy, right? Yep, that one's done. Internal damage is a little more difficult because what you have to do is you put it up to a bench and you have to bench test it. And what others have seen in the past is that through the heating of the meter or the back turning of the meter, it actually destroys the pieces in there and it won't read correctly. So meters, we have a standard of what a meter should read, about 95% accuracy, and it doesn't meet that standard, therefore it's damaged. You can't fix it. So we're trying to figure that and make sure that we have that information to get damage assessment. And then from the VOC standpoint, we haven't started testing them, but we're going to start getting a meter, back capping it, fill it up with water, back cap it, let it sit for 72 hours, and then test it and see if there's VOCs associated with that meter. Then we would show damage in that. So there's 3 things of damage to the meters that we are going to have to try to show. But right now we're not installing any new ones. We're pulling them out of the ground.
Do we charge them when we put a new meter in?
Not at this point. If especially the ones, anybody that's on the sealed or the readiness to serve charge will have a meter reinstalled for no charge.
Okay, thank you.
Kevin, did you really expect a third of your tests to come back positive above state levels? Is that what you expected?
No.
Because it seems to be a couple of months ago, it was just kind of hit and miss.
That's what I'm saying.
This is extraordinary.
It's that's what I'm saying. The more we're starting to test, the larger the project's getting, right? It's blowing our mind in a way because we're finding things that we didn't expect, right?
Well, this is a very high number.
Very high, yeah. And I mean, we hope, again, through the process that we'll see that number starting to decrease. But right now, I did not expect. If I would have guessed, I would have never guessed 30% above state limits.
You're saying through the flushing process is what you're saying that you see?
Yeah, through the flushing process and some dissipation of the VOC, we still see that we're hoping that there's results go down. But what we've seen is that if you get a really high read, the flushing can bring that high read down pretty quickly. But to get your low reads out is extremely difficult. So you can kind of decrease it quickly, and then the curve kind of goes like this for any type of VOC trying to get rid of it at the lower levels. The lower levels are harder to get rid of than the higher levels.
Well, that's why I asked you, I mean, at what point do you just give up and say, okay, that's corrupt? I mean, how many tests do you do?
We've asked that question. And again, we're playing and we have to play within the game rules of what the pocketbook
What the
tells us to do.
criteria is, yeah.
Yep. So we're playing in that game. We're playing the game right now, is what we're doing.
Kevin, it doesn't mention in here the recent contract we put out at the last meeting. Did you mention that about the engineering firm?
I thought I did, that our engineer was on board and they are actually helping
Oh,
us.
but it's $1 million contract,
Yep, $1 million.
and they have a portable water testing thing. Are they going to bring that in?
That has not been accepted by Division of Drinking Water as an acceptable form of testing. So what we're trying to do is do it once. And like Bob said, how many times are you going to test it? If we were to bring in the portable water testing, we would have to test and then retest, because they're not going to accept results unless they're from a certified lab, and no mobile lab is certified under Division of Drinking Water. So we have to kind of play with what they're trying to do, what they're requiring us to do. So we've kind of had to kind of veer a different direction when it came to finding labs. We had to find labs that were certified by the Division of Drinking Water, and what we're probably going to have to do is kind of almost contract with every lab in Northern California and be shipping samples to them every single day to try to get results back as quickly as
We're
possible.
hoping FEMA will pay for that.
That's why we're taking our time and we're working with them to make sure that they will.
No, he's got it.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. Okay. Now, let's see. We've got Mickey, community
I think community relations.
community relations report. That's great.
We should probably maybe next month just include it in the staff report. How's that sound?
Sounds
But I
good.
know it's important, so we'll talk about how we're talking to our public. We still have thousands of visitors coming to the website every month, every week, hundreds a day, to watch the progress. We're active on Facebook talking to them. The communication has greatly improved since we came home, right? So they
Nice.
can call us. They're not going to get a busy signal. They can come by 9 to 4. We developed the water fact sheet. So as Ward said, that's out and about. It's online. It's on the website. Copies at the office. We've gotten a lot of public support from Cal OES. And so they are helping us with the meeting next week. They're supporting us. So we'll have a big meeting next week. Last night I was able to spend some time at the town's, one of their planning drop-by meetings, and so we were able to talk one-on-one and answer a lot of questions last night. I still encouraged everybody to come next week, because we will have more answers. And then the biggest, some of the most effective outreach we've had is Kevin. Kevin has been talking to every group, every reporter that calls. He answers the phone, returns the call, and really takes his time, and it's really making a big difference. So thank you, Kevin, for doing the job.
Very good. Thank you, Kevin.
Have any questions?
Yeah, I was just going to say maybe we can ask Ward on some of the sites that you think we could post at. I think that was a great idea. If you got some additional sites, let Mickey know and we'll get
I
him
would
up there.
say, actually, since we burden Mickey with more responsibilities, when you look at any local agency, government entity, we are far above the top in how well you get along with your consumers or anybody in front. I mean, it's over the top. Yeah.
Well, great. Thank you.
Makes you wonder if the other agencies are hiding something. Hey, listen.
We have a great public.
We do. Great customers, yeah. Thank you very much, Mickey. Appreciate it. Yeah, and getting back to what you mentioned earlier, Kevin, I really liked what you said, and I came up with this little no customer left behind. That's kind of what you said, and I like that. So no customer left behind. Okay. All right. Treasurer's report, and we have a new treasurer, Ross.
I'm not going to throw him to the wolves today, though.
Well, congratulations on being here. Appreciate it.
So I want to introduce Ross. He is the new finance and accounting manager. He's been on, when did you start, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been on, and I threw him into the fire immediately with me. He's been part of all of the discussions with Cal OES and FEMA. He spent countless hours in meetings, conference calls, so he is picking it up quickly. He's understanding kind of what we're faced with and going forward, but also he's now diving into kind of the day-to-day operations too, and trying to really get an understanding of that. So he's kind of shadowed Aaron through payroll. He's talked to the staff about accounts payable, receivables, utility billing. So he's kind of really grasping that part of it too, the banking part, which will be key coming forward, and asking really good questions. So he's been outstanding, and I just really think that he's going to be a great team member for us in the future. So, but I'll handle it today. You have the report. Our cash reserves are actually in pretty good shape, and that's because of reimbursements that we've gotten. So our insurance has reimbursed us $1,350,000 just on a blanket reimbursement, knowing that we have more than that in damages. Our insurance does have a portion for business interruption insurance that we are going to work through. We've put together a expedited PW under the FEMA process, which is basically you can kind of submit to say, hey, we're going to spend X amount of dollars on this project, so send the money now, and we're going to use that as a kind of almost like a revolving line of credit. So we can kind of submit invoices, get reimbursed, and then pay those invoices. So we have an expedited PW for about $2 million. They only give you half of that, so they send down $1 million that sits with the state, and then the state reimburses you for your expenses. So all of the monies that we used for mutual aid is included in the expedited PW. So we're able to get those monies back and reimbursed. The SRF has forgiven our loan for the BRES. So, but we were able to get reimbursed after the fact for monies that we paid out before the fire. So we paid out $300,000 for that. We were able to take those invoices, submit it, and then they gave us money back. So that's in there. We've been really prudent with payroll and with employees that, a lot of them have left. Not a lot, but a substantial amount. We haven't backfilled anybody except for him. And so we're trying to limit our exposure when it comes to that. And then all of our materials and all that, we've tried to, if there was anything that we were not going to use, we sent back to the manufacturer for a refund. And we've been really prudent on making sure that we're not spending anything that's not going to be necessary. So that's where we're at. So we've been really good with the purse string, and it shows up in the cash. So we have 3 loans outstanding. I'm working with iBank right now for loan forgiveness. So that's the $1,375,000. I am working with BB&T has just deferred our principal payment for an April payment that was going to be about $250,000. They deferred the principal portion of that. I just got word of that today. And they're only going to require us to pay the interest portion, which is like $35,000. So that's going to help us get through this next kind of period of time, which the period of time that I'm talking about, and Dustin will talk about this more, is between now and when the budget for the state comes out, and to see what kind of support we can get through them. And then Capital One, I know, is willing to work with us on their loan. They wanted to see what BB&T did before they did anything, but they wanted to kind of mirror what they were doing. So I know Capital One is going to work with us too on that. So under the fixed debt right now, we're working diligently to either get forgiveness or to get deferrals on all of those.
Kevin?
Yep.
How about on the reserves that we've had to have for these loans before?
We don't have any of that anymore. So
It's all gone?
It's all gone, right? We did a really good thing about a year ago, and that was refinance those public bonds. Because if we were in the public market and we had public bonds and we were under the financial strain that we are currently, then we would have to disclose. There could be a calling of the bond, and you're working with thousands of bondholders, not one individual bank. So, and we have no reserves needed for these.
Okay, but so there's none at all? Oh, well, that's good news. I didn't see it in the report, and I'd always seen it there before, so I wondered.
It's gone. Yep. So through that refinance, we were able to. We actually used those reserves to pay off some of that debt. So that's what we did with that reserve. Yeah. So the FEMA Cal OES, we've actually gotten more money from them. We recently received a check for. Do you remember what that check was? $350,000. That's not included in this report. So we have additional monies that came in after this, after February 28th. We've had additional monies come in of about $350,000 from Cal OES and FEMA. So we're working with them. Bills just went out for the 2149 this last week. People have received it, and it's not for 2149, it's for 42 and some change because we're bi-monthly billing. So we really try to get that out to the customer that you're going to see 42, but it's for 2 months, not for one. So we're not overcharging you. We're charging you what the 21 was for that. Right now, that's where we're at. Our expenses are flat, right? So we don't have a lot of flexibility of variation of when we're producing only a certain amount of water that our expenses go down tremendously, because a lot of our expenses are for infrastructure and for maintenance of that infrastructure. And you still have to have the infrastructure in place no matter if you're serving 10,500 customers or if you're serving 1,500 customers. And a lot of those customers are at the ends of districts or end of line, and we still have to service them, right? So our expenses are pretty flat. And so what we're looking to do is ask for a bridge of that 3-year period from the state to help us with operations for that 3-year period because of our expenses are not flat. The other thing too is when we're talking about this recovery plan that we're talking with FEMA is under the emergency category of FEMA, which is category B, our regular time is not reimbursed through that. So all of our employees' expenses, benefits are not reimbursed. And a lot of the recovery plan is in that category B area. So a lot of our expenses we're not going to be able to get FEMA reimbursement for just because it's the game that we have to play. So that's where we're going to ask the state for that. And then we're going to continue working with our insurance to try to get as much of the reimbursement as possible from that standpoint. So
I haven't checked, but this might be a different subject here, but if you get a lot of these bills back in the mail, like can't deliver them, is there a way to put a call-in line or something on the website where people can update their address? Might be a Mickey question, I don't know, but I know a lot of people that just, I don't even know if they have forwarding address.
We have a form online under people can change their address
On the website?
They can put it, yeah. So
Okay,
they need to log into their water account and do a service order, and then put the details of their new address there.
Okay, do they have to know their account number?
Yes.
Okay,
they can call.
That could be a problem.
that's asking a lot. Yeah. Yeah.
We just found out we're not getting our mail because our temporary mail change had lapsed.
Right.
And we didn't even know it.
Well, that's kind of what I'm hearing.
Do a permit, and a lot of people might be missing the bills because of that.
Yeah. I don't know how, I mean, you're getting the word out.
We have an overflowing box of returned mail.
Probably mine.
Can you do it by not asking for the account number, just ask for the service address and have them change it that way?
I don't think so, because we need to authenticate who we're changing the address for, because not everybody is nice and honest about those kind of things.
Well, could you ask her?
Yeah,
I don't know. What else do you know about these? When you know my name.
we have an obligation to.
Oh, I understand that.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to help you get some money here.
The easiest way is
A lot of people don't know their account number anymore. I mean, they don't have any paperwork. It's gone.
Probably the easiest way is to call and change it, honestly.
Okay, is that on there too? You know, if you need, if you change your address, call this number.
I don't think our phone number explicitly said, we can definitely, I have a Facebook post ready to go out for that, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And our office hours are now 9 to 4. Our phones are up and running.
I
Everything's.
just want to see you get the money.
Yeah, no, I.
Maybe we could
I'm
put
with
that
you.
on our front page of the website and say, just have that little thing up front top, say, hey, if you haven't given us, your change of address, please call this number and
Yeah.
something like that.
Oh, by the way, my daughter just got her property tax bill yesterday. So they're sending those out if you just own a lot. So
Yeah.
that's due what, April 10th?
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know if are you all getting your property tax bills?
Haven't got
Well, is
one.
that an adjusted one?
Well, yes. Her bill's $172 for a lot.
What I did is I took my old mailbox, because the fire had burned down the post, put a new post on it, put on new letters that are big, and the mail delivery gal was pleased as punch, because when I put the thing back up and told them at the post office that I had my box up, she had 41 accounts on Neil Road left. But there's mailboxes laying down all over the place. And if you can go pick up your mail every few days, why don't you just put your mailbox up, if you're, with a big number on it, and put the post in it, and let the post office do it. If somebody runs off with your mail, they're in big trouble, so. Yeah, so.
The big thing that I want to kind of focus on is on page 15. You can kind of see where our service charge revenue was expected to be, and where we're losing, and then where our consumption revenue was expected to be, and where we're not expecting any consumption revenue for the remainder portion of the year. And I have in there just an estimate of about $150,000 a month based on just a sampling of what we feel like maybe customers were going to continue on with the service charge, and where the gaps are. And then after that, you're going to. That's kind of where our gaps are going to be heavily felt into the next fiscal year. Luckily, the fire happened at the bottom end of our largest period of consumption revenue, so we were able to kind of gather a whole bunch of revenue for that one portion. But going forward, it's not going to be there. So, all right. Any questions?
I was just thinking about that debt forgiveness, like Capital One. If they were to forgive our debt, I mean, that could be great PR for them, right?
Yeah, they don't have it in their bylaws. They said to forgive debt.
Yeah, Capital One are not nice people.
Well,
if you get to own one.
Right, but I'm just.
Yeah.
Huh?
So they said they worked really hard to get that deferral. That was one of their big, and they, not Capital One, BB&T actually came out from North Carolina, flew out here. They met with me and Ross for a half a day. They went on a tour of the town, and so they were very, very invested.
That's great.
Yes, yeah. So they did a lot of research and homework on us, and brought it back to their home office and really fought for that.
I hope we bought them lunch or something, right?
We didn't buy them lunch, actually. No. I offered to take him to the taco wagon.
Okay, well, there you go. Well, yes, for the.
Or the
Very good. Okay. All right. Well, thanks for working on that.
Yep.
Thanks, Ross. Appreciate that. Word.
Yes, thank you. And this has come up before, and that has to do with the fixed costs. And I think we've accepted that over many years, even when we've had economic fluctuations. However, this one is not normal economic fluctuations. It's very different. We've seen our town, through the management there, reduce our fire department staffing by 33%. We're down 4 police officers and not going to replace them. There are other cuts coming. At some point, people are going to say, what the heck is PID doing, keeping all those people? They're not selling any water, and they're not out here fixing my leaky pipes. What are they doing? I think I know. The problem is the perception the public has when the town is very open about we cannot afford the services we have had in many, many places. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ward. Appreciate the comment.
We've cut about 30%.
30% of our employees? Okay.
I thought maybe we should have a 10% cut of all management. Don't you think that'd be a good idea, Kevin?
I don't think that's a good idea.
Okay, let's move on now. Approval of checks. Do we have any questions on the general checks we've reviewed?
I can't ever see this.
No questions? Nope. Discussion? Anybody want to make a motion to approve the checks?
Just I want to give everybody's on the inside. If you look at we're starting to code things. Job 18-F1, that's fire. So we're trying to gather all the information on anything that's fire related that we're looking for reimbursement. So we're coding it as that. Anything else we'll probably go back and make some corrections, but some of the other stuff is just normal operations type stuff. So we're trying to when you see that in there, so you understand what that means.
I did have one question. California Water Service billing in there. Now it has to go through us, and then we get reimbursed by FEMA for that.
That's that expedited PW. We've already gotten reimbursed for that portion, and then there'll be one more check that will be issued out to them that we've already got reimbursed for. So.
Okay. What's the lag between us paying them and getting reimbursed?
I get reimbursed, and then I send.
Oh, you get reimbursed. Okay, I like that. Okay, very good. Thank you. That's my only question. Okay. Anybody like to make a motion?
Move we approve check numbers 52789 to 52870 for February 2019, totaling $548,632.65.
Thank you, Bob.
A second.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion passed.
One last thing. FEMA just approved that, you remember they would do 75%, and then Cal OES comes in and does 75 of the 25. FEMA just, for their emergency operations, they just upped it to 90. So FEMA's doing 90%. Cal OES is now doing 75 of the 10. So our portion went from 6.25 down to 2.5 local share. And we're thinking there's going to be a gap closing where the state will take care of the full 10%.
Wow. Great. Fantastic.
Yep.
Keep working that.
Oh, shit. Doug Lamoff is taking credit.
Oh, good. Okay. All right. New business.
Okay.
Attorney's report now.
Did I miss something? Oh, I'm sorry. Legal report.
This is the whole reason I came.
Report.
Good evening, board and public. Dustin Cooper, happy to be substituting for Emily, who is on vacation. So I have a legislative update for you. Just to maybe warm us all up, get us on the same page. The problem, as everyone is well aware, is we have funding sources available for our infrastructure damage through FEMA and OES. But because of the significant loss to our customer base, we do not have that revenue source for our ongoing operation expenses. So we have been working with our state representatives to pursue what's called a backfill. And as I reported last month, the county and the tax-funded agencies have already received a 3-year backfill of about $31 million. So that they've essentially been taken care of, at least for the next few years. We are asking for essentially the same thing, although it's not property tax revenue. In our case, it's water fees. The ask, as noted in the Treasurer's report, is almost $22 million, $21.6 million. That there's math that goes into that figure. We have budgeted. We have both an expense projection and a revenue projection over the course of the next 3 years, and pre-fire, post-fire type of thing, and we've calculated our loss. So one big milestone for us in this process occurred earlier this month, and that is Assemblymember Gallagher and Senator Nielsen, on our behalf, made what's known as a member request. They asked officially for that $21.6 million for PID. We are now in the stage of the process where we're seeking support. So I'm going to look to our audience here, Ward and Jim and Lauren, and I'm sorry, folks, I don't know your names, but we need support from everyone, from this community, from the county, the city, neighboring areas, other water districts. We need to really put the call out that this is something not just Northern California or Butte County supports, that this is a statewide issue and deserves the attention of the legislature. So I should also mention I'm working with Mickey and Kevin to ramp up the kind of support gathering effort. Last night, Mickey was kind enough to have a template letter of support that she was handing out to folks that came to the table. And we can get that to you board members if you haven't seen it already. Both Mr. Gallagher and Nielsen have said that the more letters of support we can get, the better it would be. So, yes, Director Kellogg.
I was at a meeting today where Tanya and Mark Dale were there, and they showed a letter of support and passed it around and asked everybody to sign on and gave the web page address, everything. And they say they're not charging the district any money for this. This is a thing they used to do most of our advertising here and other things. Of course, we can't afford it anymore. But so they have that online, and I didn't write down the address, but that's part of it. And it looked like a very nice letter, and asked people to sign them and send them in. So.
Yep, I contacted Mark and Tanya, and they were very generous, have been very generous with their time, and they put together a change.org petition that Mickey is going to then broadcast out on our social media page, and I'm hoping that this just kind of snowballs. I've reached out to community leaders here in Paradise, and I'm looking at some of you guys in the audience that I haven't spoken with yet, to just be willing to take one of these letters and consider signing it yourself, and then also consider signing it or forwarding it on to folks in your circle of friends. I've done the same thing with community leaders in Chico and Oroville. The county is going to provide a letter of support. I've sent it off and made a request for the town. I have contacted every water lawyer in the state that I have ever worked with, which is a lot, surprisingly, and made a request to them to send it out to their respective client group. We're still pretty early in this effort, but I've gotten support letters so far from San Diego and all the way up to the Oregon border, so, and everywhere in between. I think we're going to have many different areas of support. Last Friday, the Association of California Water Agencies offered their support to us. We've got NACWA, Northern California Water Association. Who else? CSDA, California Special Districts Association. So one thing that is very clear is this, as part of this process, we are not going to get a yes. We're not going to get a yes until it's in the budget, which is, it's not going to occur until we're hoping for the May revise, which is late April or early May. We're also not getting a no, by the way. It's a maybe in the various discussions that we're having. So it's the type of thing that it's really a marathon. You got to keep after it. Even if you get our issue put into the May revise of the budget, you need to continue monitoring it and make sure it stays there, because the politics get really weird really quick, and you can get tossed out. So, I would encourage each of the board members, the folks in the audience, to commit to this effort, support it yourself. and then send it out to folks that you know, friends, and let's keep at it. It's an urgent need, obviously.
Can you speak of the help that we've received from the lobbying groups and for no cost to the district?
Yes, we've received a lot of help, and at some point we're going to need to look back and maybe do a resolution of appreciation to all the different groups that have supported us. But one in particular, Matthew Broad, who's a lobbyist in Sacramento, a well-respected lobbyist firm, they represent the Teamsters, which is they represent your management unit. They stepped in and offered support. What they are just helping us do is really just set up meetings, get us access, point us in the right direction, make sure we're talking to the right people, those types of things. So Matt Broad, kudos to him. He's been an incredible help, and hopefully will continue to be.
Justin, who would we address these letters to? In other words, we know we've got our local reps support, but who do you address this letter to? Just in general to the.
So the template letter that we have drafted is addressed to Assemblyman Gallagher and Senator Nielsen.
So, in other words, they can just say to their other associates, other representatives, we've gotten this amount of letters. Is that what?
We've gotten hundreds already.
Okay.
And I hope to have thousands at some point.
Okay.
But
it's to anybody that you can think of.
Right. That's my point. We've got the support of Gallagher and Lamalfa.
Now he's looking for the support from the groundswell of the individuals that are behind California.
But are there other legislators we ought to be targeting, I guess?
Oh, yeah, we're meeting with others.
yes, and I'll give you an example. I spoke with Eastern Municipal Water District today, and they were kind enough to send a support letter, and then they copied their representatives in their area.
Oh, great.
So that's a common thing that we're asking for, that they not only offer their support, but they inform their representatives to also support this effort. So
okay, that makes sense. That's great.
And we're meeting with other reps in the Assembly and the Senate to get their support from just our Dustin. I'm not going to make it. Actually, I'm telling you that now.
Oh, okay.
Tomorrow morning, Dustin's meeting with a assemblyman who is part of the finance.
yeah, so there's 3 budgets in California. There's Assembly, there's Senate, and there's Governor. What we want to see is unity. The 21.6 makes it in all 3 of those budgets, gets into the May revise. That way you avoid what's known as conference. If you end up with something less than all 3, like let's say we get 2 out of the 3 as an example, then you end up in conference. It's not the end of the world, and we may end up there, but hopefully not. But conference, again, the politics get really weird, and everybody may think it's a worthwhile cause, should be funded, but issues pop up, and so we're trying to avoid that. We're aiming, so we're speaking with Governor's office, Assembly folks, and Senate folks.
Okay, fantastic. Go ahead, sure.
Asking for letters of support at a grassroots level as well.
Yes.
Where does one find that template and what's being done to get that out to the
Mickey.
I'll be right back. I'll go get some now. When he's done speaking, I'll have some for you.
So this just started
Really yesterday.
Yeah. So it's very, very fresh.
Yeah.
I do not.
Someone, other question?
I have something, but it's not on this. It's something old I'd like to ask about. No, it doesn't concern this issue, which we're talking about right now.
Just to let you know, too, I will be speaking at the Cal Nevada AWWA conference next week. And then I'll also be speaking at Western Canal's annual meeting as the keynote speaker for their annual meeting down there. And then I'll be looking for support from all of the individuals that will be attending each one of those.
Great.
Okay. Well, thank you, Dustin.
The question I have goes back to our report, the attorney's report to February the 11th of 19. And I'll just read it out loud. Telephone call with G. Barber, re-feasibility of intertie with Cal Water Chico to address PID's long-term financial issues. Email with lobbyists, review the latest Gallagher legislation, CEQA exemption for certain projects.
Correct.
Did anything happen?
We have.
I'll take this.
Okay.
So, in all of these discussions in Sacramento, there is general understanding and consensus that the state needs to provide some level of support. The question is really how much. I would say there's been a couple, I don't want to use the term negative, but maybe just common questions. One question is, okay, Mr. Cooper, let's say we give you 3 years, what you're asking for. What are you going to do year 4? Because we don't believe that your customer base will be sufficiently rebuilt, repopulated to support the district. Very legitimate question. Our answer to that is we understand that that is an issue, and we just candidly need 3 years to work through it. The way you work through it is likely going to be a restructuring of how we do business. So it's most likely going to be some sort of water transfer, and hopefully it's going to be local to somebody in Butte County. The document you're reading from is an effort on my part to begin that discussion. And we have a meeting, Kevin, the 26th, maybe?
It is.
Sometime next week.
It's the 26th.
We'll be with the county and Cal Water representatives to just begin that discussion. One, I don't want to get into too much detail, but I will just share this. There's a possibility for a real win-win here. The win for PID is obviously selling some water on a temporary basis. This isn't forever, but maybe it's long enough to allow the community to rebuild. And obviously, we would secure the revenue of that transaction and sustain the district. From the buyer perspective, and the buyer in this case would likely be Butte County, and the recipient of the water may be somebody like Cal Water Chico. They in 2014, there was a law passed called SGMA, Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, and there are, Chico is a large urban area that's 100% dependent on groundwater. And long term, in order to grow and develop, that may not be optimal. So is there a scenario where PID can temporarily, for a period of years, say, sell water that we have available to us that's surplus to our customers' needs, and then at some point as the community rebuilds, we need that water back, then the deal's done.
How would you deliver it?
It would be a new intertie facility. Well, that particular possibility or concept is a pipeline, an intertie. There are other options where you're selling raw water and you're using Butte Creek, Little Butte Creek, and then Butte Creek as conveyance. So,
how would you get it to Butte Creek?
Well, Little Butte Creek, our facilities are on Little Butte Creek, so we would just release more water from our reservoirs down Little Butte Creek and then into Butte Creek.
The last time we considered this was it was a $20 million plus project, and it was piped down next to Skyway, and there was no way it was going to pay for itself. And now you're telling us we can drop water in Little Butte Creek and get it down to Butte Creek with all the interests and water interests on Butte Creek over the water rights. Would we be able to do that? It doesn't sound.
You can sell water to San Diego.
But how would you get it to San Diego?
Butte Creek to Sacramento River to Delta to Aqueduct.
Through the California water system.
Yes, but when the last time we considered this, nobody ever thought about just going down Butte Creek or Little Butte Creek, and now you're saying it's possible to do that?
Well, so there's a treated water transfer is more reliable in terms of frequency and revenue generation. A raw water transfer is more like a spot market. You don't know year to year whether there's going to be buyer demand. So take this year as an example. There will not be any water transfers this year of raw water. It's been wet enough. The farmers have their fill. So you may have planned to sell raw water, but there's no market because of the wet conditions. Now, that may be something that ultimately you as a board say that's what we're going to pursue, the raw water transfer. But my concern is it's not reliable. If we as a district need a reliable revenue source, you can't have a spot market that you don't know year to year whether it's going to exist or not.
You have to put it in a pipe, is what you're saying.
And it's treated.
Yes, treated water from our treatment plant, like the 42-inch line down Skyway or whatever, and that's millions of dollars a project.
Yeah, and Assemblymember Gallagher has a bill, I believe it's AB 431. It's a placeholder bill. Well, we hope to make further amendments to it eventually, but currently it's a CEQA exemption bill for county, town, and PID. There are ways to make that. I don't recall it being a $20 million project, by the way. I remember 7, but maybe my memory's wrong. Do you?
It was a napkin. It was
Yeah.
never. It was never.
We did not engineer it, but
This was a big guess thing.
in any event, it's expensive. But we will have a legislative ask that's apart from the budget. That legislative ask hopefully will facilitate this, what I'm calling the Year 4 project. Because Year 4, we need to have a revenue source.
Chico would actually, rather than getting our sewage, would rather have the clean water, treated water, right?
Well, I'll tell you big if, but if you are putting a treated water line down the Skyway corridor or somewhere down to the valley, you should put a sewer line right next to it. It will never be cheaper. If you have a contractor mobilized, pipe is cheap.
Yeah, oh, well, we'll have Mark talk about that. He's the expert over
10
there.
feet of separation, Dustin.
10 feet,
Little separation there.
but a contractor's mobilized.
It's a great concept, I think, what Dustin's describing here.
There will be more discussion on what I'm calling the Year 4 project moving forward. It's something that we all need to start considering. But right now, the absolute focus is the budget. That's the crisis that's in front of us. Yes. If you don't, we will spend through reserves before Year 4 if we don't get the budget solution.
Right.
We have on the Year 4 project. There's a lot of support from the county on that.
Mm-hmm.
The county is really excited about that, about talking about
Because
this.
they got a 3-year term as well on their money, correct? Is that
Yeah,
right?
This is solving not financial issues for them. This is solving Sigma issues for them.
Right, but their backfill was for 3 years as
Correct.
well, so they got a 4-year. They got to have a 4-year plan as well, probably. I would think.
I would
a
think.
4th-year plan. Yeah. Okay.
Well, just for commentary about the rumors in this town, at one time, it was not too long ago, it was rumored that Cal Water was going to buy this business here. So, of course, that wasn't true, was it?
I can't
No
dispel
comment.
any rumors.
Any other discussion? Questions? Public?
Very quickly, there's a quote that kind of summarizes that. It's okay to sin against God. He forgives you. Don't sin against the bureaucracies.
Thank you, Ward. Okay.
Understand that.
Thank you for the comments. Now we can go to new business, is that right?
Yep.
Okay, very good.
Hold on one sec.
Sure.
New business is fairly simple. The first one is awarding the consulting services to inspect tanks. So this is for insurance purposes, and it will be reimbursed by the insurance once we expend it. So this is a straight pass-through. We had to get the insurance required us to get 2 bids. That's all they needed, so we got 2 bids, and we're selecting the lowest bid. They're going to drain the tanks, then go in and inspect them, because what they've seen with past fires is that you can't see the blistering unless you drain them all the way with the water in there. The blistering doesn't come out. So they're going to drain them, look at them, and then what they'll do is those tanks are insured. So whatever is required for repair will run through insurance.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
I move to approve and authorize the district manager to execute an agreement with Harper and Associates Engineering for inspection services for tanks A, C, D, and E at no cost not to exceed $16,200. And please tell our customers this is to ensure quality water.
We got a second? Was that a second? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes, thank you. Okay.
Second is a previously approved job description that was unfilled as a distribution system operator. This is where it's more a technical job description. It was revised to take away one of the requirements down from a grade a D2 to a D1, and then get the D2 within a certain time period. The reason why is because the requirements under the state laws are different now that we don't have as many connections.
Oh.
So we're no longer a large water system, we're now a small water system. So that was one of the, and we'll fill this with in-house, and we won't backfill the position that will be filled in this position. So we're not adding a body by this job description change. It's just a ability to give a internal person the promotion to this, which is a really valuable job at this point.
Sounds good. Any, do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion. Motion, we approve the amendments to the distribution system operator job description as submitted.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes, thank you.
Georgianne, you're up.
So, we posted the vacancy as per the board's direction, and we did not receive any letters of interest. So we've extended that. We have to April 11th. And we have, the board has, or the district has 60 days to fill the position. The board of supervisors will appoint someone.
They have the ability
They have
to
the
appoint.
ability to appoint someone. So the hope is that we'll receive letters of interest by April 11th, and then the board can consider new letters of interest. at
Move to
April
continue.
8th.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I wanted to do that.
There's the map, if you know anybody who lives
Yeah,
in
is there
that
any
map.
other way we can get the word out?
Well, Mickey at the meeting, she participated it last night. She had flyers, and
Okay.
we're going to have those at our community meeting.
Okay.
So,
At the meeting Tuesday?
on Tuesday.
Okay, great.
And we've already, we've received some inquiries
Oh, good.
from individuals expressing interest, so.
The post in the ER, I think, had a, what do you call it, the policy thing in the paper, their opinion that this was an opportunity for somebody to serve the community and influence the future of the district. That was a very nice write-up from them.
Very good.
It was also on the internet.
Okay.
And we have flyers at our customer service counter as well.
So, yeah, we definitely encourage anyone that has an interest to step forward and.
Try for another month.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No pressure.
It should be explained to them that they like.
Go ahead, Ward. Any comment?
It's come up before, and I still think we need to be pursuing the dissolving the divisions, you know. I mean, there's a lot of good people in a lot of places all around town, but to try and specifically get to a certain place, even now, it just seems so much less important now than
We can't afford the attorney fees, Ward.
I know.
Thank you for the comment, Ward.
It's legislation.
Yeah. Legislation to boot. Yeah. Okay.
The last thing here, it's got Ann's letter. Have we given or sent out any certificate for her for serving the district and appreciation? I don't remember signing one.
We did plaques.
You got a plaque for
We
her?
did plaques for
Is she
Ann.
still in town where we could invite her to the meeting and give it to her?
No, she's not.
She isn't.
Oh,
So
okay.
the card that the board members signed.
Yeah, I
sent
remember that.
with the plaque.
But I remember we presented either,
We can do a resolution of
yeah,
appreciation.
one of them. The boards can sign it and send it off to her. So it's just a
good idea.
courtesy idea. We've done it for other directors, some of which, now that they're long gone and stuff, I could say that they really didn't deserve it.
Okay. Thank you for doing that, by the way, Georgiana, putting that together. So, director's comments. Bob.
Well, I welcome Ross aboard, and I thank you and the staff to continue the great work they're doing. In response to the ward, the police department calls for service went down, they laid up. Your work just went up, and you still cut 30%. So that's an apple and an orange as far as I'm concerned. These people are working their butts off. But Ward, I have one question for you. When we get all said and done clearing out this town, that Penny Pines project we have at the Garden Club, could we adapt that to replant? Could that be part of the program?
This is an appropriate question. Yes, thank you.
You know a lot more about it than I do.
At the last state California Garden Club meeting that I attended, one of the issues was whether or not we continue to donate monies from garden clubs to Penny Pines Reforestation Project. The problem has been U.S. Forest Service accepting the money and using it for reforestation. We found about 15 checks in about 2 months' time that went to the general fund. They can spend it on anything they want. We have, for years, designated, we're donating to Lassen and Plumas Forest for reforestation, and they've been pretty good about it. Central to Southern California has been terrible about it. So when we got checks back that they were stale dated, over 90 days old, hadn't been cashed, we called and said, what is the problem here? And they said, we didn't know which fund to put it in or how to allocate these resources for what you're requesting. And we don't need $68. We need $680. We can't do one plantation at a time. We need to do 10 to have the right staff. They had never communicated that to the Garden Club. So this put it into do we dissolve this as a project or do we give the money back? We don't know who all the donors are, so we can't dissolve it as a project. We can hold it for 3 years without dispersing any before the state comes after us and says, hey, as a nonprofit, you're holding funds to be dispersed in this, and you're not doing it. So we're working through it. We're into
Just to
about
explain to everybody.
9 months of this problem.
Just to explain everybody what this is. You give $1 and you get a pine seedling. And so we donate $1 at the Garden Club, and that gives you one pine tree.
Yeah.
I don't know why we couldn't apply that to this town and do the same program.
We certainly need new trees, that's for sure.
The garden clubs in this area are looking at how to contribute something, to do something, to re-beautify.
Just a
the
thought.
town.
Yeah, just
They
a
are.
thought.
Thank you. Good idea. Bill, you have any comments? You'd like to-
I'd like to be last. I've said more than anybody else and gotten more in trouble.
You wanna be last,
tonight.
huh?
So I'd like to be last.
Okay, sure.
Well, I've adopted the theory to better to be thought a fool than to open my mouth and remove all doubt. So I just want to say that I just appreciate the staff and what they're doing, and that myself as public just have patience because they're discovering new and exciting things every day, some of which we're not all that happy about. But we have an amazing staff, and they're going above and beyond.
All right, yeah, I'm with you on that. I thank the staff again, and Ross, thanks for being here. We're going to be counting on you, buddy. So bring in those bucks. So, yeah, and I appreciate the customers. Appreciate you all being here tonight and hanging in with us. It's going to be a long road, but we're going to get there, and we'll have a better district than ever before when this is all said and done. So appreciate y'all. So anyway.
Oh, I want to thank Kevin for all the questions I asked and all the information he revealed that wasn't in the report. That I don't know who's going to report it, but at any rate, I was very appreciative of the details. And the saying about the problem is in the details of getting things done. It's not in the broad spectrum. So I really appreciate that, because there were questions I had, and I was wondering why they weren't answered. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for your questions.
All right. Well, I think we've got to adjourn to closed session now, and
So you have to make sure that you read it and then allow the public. They have
okay.
Comments on closed session?
Can we have a 10-minute break too?
Oh, we can have a break. Let's go for a break, and then we'll do a break right now.
I'll let you read it real quick and then break.
What's that?
Read it and then break.
Oh, okay. Conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation of pursuant to paragraph 4, subdivision D of section 54956.9, one potential case. And B, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, paragraph 1 of subdivision D of Government Code section 54956.9, Bay Delta proceedings, including the California Water Fix, the associated environmental document, and change petition pending before the State Water Resources Control Board, and the planned update of the Bay Delta Water Quality Plan. Sorry.
Any public comments on that? None? Good. Okay, now we can do our 10
Okay, now we can do a 10-minute recess break. Thank you.